Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. We've got you covered. Traditional leagues, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
What's good, everybody? Back again, Austin here with the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Happy to be here as always, going live right at 7 p.m. Had some technical difficulties a little bit today, so that is why we are starting at this time, just a little bit after 7, so it's all good. We are brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Thank you to them for putting everything on. Super sweet of them. Guys, I really am encouraging you and the whole GSMC team. If y'all do not know, if y'all do not know, the leader of GSMC, the GSMC Sports Network, I don't know why I can't get that out. The leader of the GSMC Sports Network is Andrew Tate, and he's just recommending that we all come together as a community here. If y'all want to ask me more questions, support the show, all that stuff, just building the community. I don't know how to really phrase that. I just like having you guys here. I also do 2 extra Patreon segments every single day. But yeah, that's pretty much the deal. Today we're going to be talking about quarterback winners and quarterback losers, then tight end winners and tight end losers, and then the waiver wire. Then we're going to hit the waiver wire at the very end. If you guys are enjoying what we're doing over here, just, drop a like, interact with the channel. I love having you guys here, giving you all this content for free for sure. So let's get into it with my quarterback winners. We had some really good quarterback play, honestly, here in week 7. Really like what I saw from these guys. Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes went crazy. Who should we start with? Lamar Jackson had a great day. Jalen Hurts. Let's just start with Patrick Mahomes. Man's went crazy. It's not really surprising, though, given that he's playing against the Chargers defense. The Chargers are absolutely trash. They have lost their best corner. Their whole defense gets paid a lot of money, and they can't stop anybody in the rushing, receiving, any of those type of games. And Pat Mahomes completely exposed them. 32 for 42, 424 yards, and 4 touchdowns through the air. And then he's always just doing damage with his legs. He's been an explosive playmaker, honestly, in key situations for the Chiefs so far this year. Honestly, it feels like he can really only go to Kelsey if he's going to be throwing. And then, crucial second down, crucial third down situations, Patrick Mahomes will use his legs because he is a little bit faster somehow, just a little bit faster than these defensive linemen that are chasing him. And he's the best quarterback that I've ever seen. I think he's going to go down as the GOAT, probably grab 6 or 7 Super Bowls. It just wouldn't surprise me. They just need to keep building that offense around him, and he was really spreading it out to his wide receivers. Valdez-Scantling finally had a good day. Rashee Rice had a good day. Kelsey had a great day because Taylor Swift was in the building. And it was just a good time for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. It was good. Lamar Jackson went crazy. I think he was either him or Patrick Mahomes had the most, but they both put up crazy performances. Lamar, 33 fantasy points in week 7, 21 for 27, 357 yards throwing. Don't say that he's a running back. Don't do that. He completed 77% of his balls here in week 7 too. 3 touchdowns through the air. I know that Mark Andrews caught 2 of them. I don't know. Oh, and then Aguilar, I think, caught the other one. And then he quietly has 5 rushing touchdowns so far this year too. Carried the ball 9 times for 36 yards. Solid stuff from Lamar Jackson. He is a wizard, and he's also definitely the best closer in football. He is able to get the ball last, and it's in that really tight, really close game, and he gets the ball last. It just feels like he's going to will himself to victory, usually with his legs. We had Kirk Cousins had a really big day in football terms, but not really in fantasy terms. Didn't have the craziest day. What I love about Kirk Cousins, when we talk about volume, I'm always telling you, like, running back, wide receivers, 20 touches, whatever. This dude gets 45 plus throwing attempts, like, per game. Week 1, 44. Week 2, 44. Week 3, 50. Dropped off in week 4. I don't really know what happened here, but only 19, but gets back to his regular numbers at 47 against Kansas City, 31 against Chicago, and that was a pretty down game for him. He wasn't doing a lot, but obviously impressed us here in week 7, 35 for 45, 378 yards and 2 touchdowns with the best wide receiver in the league not being in. I was talking about this yesterday. I really do think there's going to be a case for Justin Jefferson wanting to make his comeback sooner rather than later if the Vikings are competitive, and I think that is definitely true, and especially if Kirk Cousins is firing on all cylinders. If he's going to continue to play like that, I don't get why they wouldn't want to keep him with all the talk that they're going to get rid of him immediately. Then we had Josh Allen. Another solid day. Anytime he gets a rushing touchdown, he's going to have a decent fantasy day. Currently already has 4 rushing touchdowns. The quarterbacks to really watch out for as far as rushers and scoring touchdowns, Josh Allen, obviously. Jalen Hurts is number 1. The touch push is undefeated. Nobody can stop it. Literally, against the Miami Dolphins, there was 6 or 7 plays where they used the tush push, and I think they went 7 for 7. They definitely didn't get stopped any time that they used that play. So definitely OP, going to lead to a lot of Jalen Hurts touchdowns throughout the year. And then Lamar Jackson has 5 so far. That's a lot. So really those 3 guys are it. Justin Fields sometimes, but he's been hurt. And anytime that you dislocate your thumb on your throwing hand, I'm really scared. He's my starting quarterback. I had Anthony Richardson go down to the IR, so I'm rocking with Matthew Stafford now. Not great. Let's talk about a couple more guys. Let's do Gardner Minshew, man. Dude, who saw that coming? I think Gardner Minshew was actually the lowest projected, going into week 7, he was the lowest projected quarterback to score the lowest amount of points. And he said, nah. Scored 27 fantasy points, had 2 rushing touchdowns, 29 yards on the ground, and then also threw for a 300 ball with 2 touchdowns. Josh Downs for the Colts was getting down, doing big things for the Colts. He's a good player. Definitely someone to watch out for if somehow he is still on the waivers. I would be picking him up immediately. And then I also just wanted to talk before we get into the second segment about the rookie. Where is he at? Tyson Bagnet. And his dad is a 28-time arm wrestling champion. That's pretty solid. Definitely coming from good loins. And he looks pretty athletic. He literally is built like a wide receiver, in my opinion. And, coming into his first start, completed 72% of his balls for 162 yards and a touchdown. When he was, moving out of the pocket, he just looked very agile. He only rushed it 3 times for 24 yards. But this dude literally looks like he could play wide receiver. I'm sure he kind of want to check his 40 time. Let's do that before we get into the second segment. 4.79. Definitely wasn't showing 4.79 speed in my opinion. But guys, yeah, we're going to the second segment where we're talking about quarterback losers. it so happen. For real. Yeah, for real. What's good, everybody? GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. My name is Austin, as you guys know. And the NBA is back today. That's exciting. Jokic and the guys celebrating the title right in front of the Lakers' face as they were talking all that mess. In the offseason. Should be exciting. It's looking like it's shaping up to be an exciting end of the game, like 97-90 right now. So something to keep an eye on. Let's talk about my quarterback losers, though. Guys who did not do good in fantasy football this week in any way. Honestly, I was looking through all the quarterbacks and just like searching around for someone to say that they had a bad day in fantasy football, and there really wasn't too many guys that I was seeing that didn't perform. Everybody seemed to, not everybody, obviously there was some outliers naturally, but from just like a mean, I think like the mean score for quarterbacks was right around like 16 or 17 points, which is a pretty good score for the week. But there were some guys who didn't perform, so let's talk about them. Justin Herbert so far this year has put up top 12 performances in every single week that he has turned in a game so far, except for week 7. And in week 7, he went 17 for 30, 259 yards and a touchdown. Honestly, not too bad, but did throw 2 picks, so that's going to subtract points from his fantasy value. Justin Herbert, definitely not a rushing quarterback by any means. He did have 2 touchdowns somehow in one of these games, but that's just not really what he does. He's more of the pocket guy, and he has a cannon. Love what we see from Justin Herbert on a week-to-week basis, but this just wasn't his week. He ran up against Patrick Mahomes. I know that Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo just had their number. It is what it is. I think that he's going to have an incredible bounce-back day here in Week 8 versus the Chicago Bears. Anytime that a team is playing against the Chicago Bears, it just feels like a tune-up. It's almost like a bye week. You just get to tune up real quick, even though the Chicago Bears somehow beat the Raiders with the backup quarterback. And that's why we had to talk about Bajonet, or however you say his name. His dad is literally a 28-time arm wrestling champion. That is wild. And then Jared Goff didn't have the best day. He's been a really big fantasy performer so far this year, and I'm definitely still keeping the faith, believing in him. And I really honestly can't believe that he didn't have a good day after he threw it 53 times in this game. That's a season high so far for him. Went 33 for 53, 62% there for 284 yards and 0 touchdowns. 1 interception here, 9 fantasy points. I know a lot of people kind of reach for Jared Goff, or not reach for him, but kind of reached. I don't know. A lot of people weren't even very high on Jared Goff at all. This dude was the first pick in his draft class. He's not some type of bum. There's literally this video of Jared Goff going into a college, and he has like stuff on his face so they don't recognize him as Jared Goff. And he goes in to like a JUCO or something like that, and he's just throwing ropes. Jared Goff's a very talented quarterback. I like him, but he just had a bad week here against Baltimore. They got Marlon Humphrey and some dogs over there. That's a very good defensive squad. John Harbaugh, a very defensive-minded coach too. So I'm not surprised that we have to put him in the loser category. Brock Purdy, got to talk about him. He, after starting off 14-0 in regular season games, he has now lost his last two. And I'm honestly really surprised about this one. I thought he was going to, come into Minnesota, US Bank Stadium, and drop 40. Kirk was going to drop 35, and they're just going to get out of there. And that's really not what happened. He went 21 for 30, 272 yards, so 70% completion percentage. This dude's definitely accurate when he wants to be. He let a couple balls sail on him here. He threw 2 interceptions, and he's definitely not fast by any means at all. He's not a rusher. He was able to rush 5 times for 19 yards here, but he's considered a slow quarterback in the league today for sure. I don't know. It's just hard to judge these 49ers when they're not fully healthy. Christian McCaffrey still looked pretty good, obviously. Had the 2 touchdowns, 100 yards from scrimmage, but he came in with an injury. Obviously, Deebo Samuel was out, like I was saying. And I don't know. They just kind of looked a bit out of sync with having Jawan Jennings catching so many balls. And they need Deebo back. Deebo is the glue for that squad, I think, is what it is. And until he comes back, it's just going to be easier to one-on-one Ayuk. Kittle can eat whenever he can, but you just make sure to contain Ayuk, and you kind of have their offense figured out after Christian McCaffrey is done with his work. I don't know, just my analysis. Then we got Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is failing currently, and everybody hates him. I know all the negative energy is just being slighted at him. I feel bad for the guy. It's not a good situation that he's in. I don't know if it's O-line or what's truthfully going on here. It's not like he's having the worst season. His completion percentage isn't the worst. This past game, 69% of balls completed, 20 for 29. He's supposed to have this amazing offensive coordinator in Sean Payton, and I haven't seen it. Not really, except against these really bad teams like Chicago. That was the only solid game. And then I guess against the Commanders too, they did have that early game where they ended up losing at the end. And the Broncos are just a disappointment. It's sad to see, and Russell Wilson is attached to them. I really don't think Russell Wilson is a disappointment. I think his large house and his large bank account would speak to that. Also his Super Bowl ring. I don't think that Russell Wilson's bad. He's just in a bad situation, a very toxic environment in Denver, Colorado, and I'm definitely just feeling for the guy. He's still quarterback 8, even with all of the distractions and obstacles he's had to overcome. He's going to go play Kansas City again, where he only put up 6.9 fantasy points when he played Kansas City in Week 6. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. They go into the bye Week 9, and then they come out and play the Buffalo Bills. And I'm sure by that time it'll be and we can't even tank for Caleb Williams because we don't have any draft picks. We just gave them all up for Russell Wilson. So, rest in peace to the Broncos. Rest in peace for Russell Wilson. Was there anybody else that I needed to talk about? Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder both had pretty bad days. That was pretty much it. Sam Howell put up 7 points total for that offense. That offense is bad. If Brian Robinson Jr. is not working for the Commanders, then they really don't have anything. They desperately need to set up that play action to get guys like Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson involved, but I don't know. They're struggling. Guys, when I come back, let's talk tight end winners and tight end losers, and then at the very end we'll do the waiver wire and kind of go over 10-team, 12-team waiver wire guys that I think you could pick up for this Week 8. What is going on? I see we have a comment. Will you trade Komet and Shaheed for Kittle and Rondell Moore? 20-man PPR. That's a whole lot. Roster, JT, Aaron Jones, Tyreek Hill. And you're trading... I mean, look, man. Kittle is explosive. Kittle is here sometimes, and then other days he is the best tight end in the entire league. Just so dynamic and so strong. He is slept on for sure. I think he's better than TJ Hawkinson just from a talent standpoint, but he's more into blocking and being that team player. I really like him especially if Debo's out and he's now having to become a higher priority on the 49ers offense, then absolutely would do that. However, I do like Shaheed too. I think he has upside. Rondell Moore also has upside too, especially if Kyler Murray comes back and does anything. Little bobblehead guy. Let's do tight ends. I'm going to do some tight end winners and losers. Yeah. This is the tight end winners and losers section. So just be aware of that. We're combining both of them so then we can go into the waiver wire and I can tell you some guys that I like that you can pick up for week 8. So talking about these tight ends, this is a big tight end week. This is a huge tight end week. Pretty much or like 2/3 of the starting tight ends did really, really well. So obviously, let's just start with Travis Kelce every single time. That's exactly where you start when you're talking about tight ends. He is super. He's a swift player. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's like that. And this week, 12 receptions, 179 yards, and a touchdown, 13 more targets. Insane volume. Absolutely insane volume. Gets to have the best quarterback in the entire league throwing to him. He's just has a billionaire girlfriend. He's in a perfect situation in life. When you think about places that you want to be in life, like from like a balance standpoint of winning on multiple latitudes, that's absolutely where you want to be. Just 179 yards and a touchdown for Kelce this week. It's too easy. We saw Hawkinson do big things here in that Monday Night Football game. Seems like with Justin Jefferson out, he's taking that number 1 spot, and he pretty much has to. He got a ton of volume, 12 targets, 11 catches, 86 yards. He even got hurt a couple times, and he was still able to get that volume. Jordan Addison is also a problem in the league already. Very, very good wide receiver, like what we're seeing from Jordan Addison so far. But I think Hawkinson does take priority in this offense until Justin Jefferson gets back. But like I said, I do see Justin Jefferson coming back sooner rather than later at the moment. Mark Andrews had a 2-touchdown game in this one. Only 4 catches for 63 yards, but 2 of them were for scores. So whenever he's able to do that, which he's already done that one other time this year, he'll have a pretty good fantasy day, 22 points here. It's just a matter of if he can score touchdowns for you week to week, because if he doesn't, he seems to be a kind of middle-of-the-road type tight end. When he scores touchdowns, 15 points, 25 points, 22 points. When he doesn't score touchdowns, 7.5 points, 12.5 points, and 10.9 points. So very middle-of-the-road numbers if you're not getting a touchdown from Mark Andrews. I'm a bit low on him personally, but moving on. Darren Waller, finally coming alive, right? Finally figuring out how to get involved, and these last 2 weeks he's been on Tyrod Taylor's team and not Daniel Jones' team. So that is wonderful. Just being away from Daniel Jones usually can solve all fantasy problems. And this past week he went 7 receptions, 98 yards, and a touchdown, 8 targets. And in the media I was telling you guys a couple weeks ago that he was a focal point for Daniel Jones and apparently now Tyrod Taylor to get him involved. He's a crucial part of the offense, and now they're finally understanding that. It seems like the volume and the targets are going up the last 3 weeks, 11 targets, 7 targets, and 8 targets. So he's getting plays designed for him where he's definitely the first look, and that's really all we're looking for from these fantasy tight ends. Then we got George Kittle, George Kittle was called upon a little bit more too this past week, and he looked good. He was just running post routes, nothing special, grinding it out per usual. 5 catches for 78 yards, 13 fantasy points. I'm just gonna call that a win for him. On a day where I guess he did get 7 targets, which is his second most so far this year. So heavily targeted, but never in the red zone, I don't think. And honestly, I'm just taking 13 points from my tight end, knowing that George Kittle has a potential to break out any game that he can. However, obviously, I've talked about him as being an inconsistent fantasy player. 1 point in week 4, 1 point in week 6. So to my guy who was asking about George Kittle, I just love his upside and think he's one of the best football players. I guess his fantasy acumen, I thought it was a little bit better than this. RIP. But with Deebo Samuel out, I promise that he will be called upon more if there's ever an injury within the offense. Definitely would be looking at George Kittle to be my starting tight end. Dallas Goedert, Dalton Kincaid, both had solid days. Dalton Kincaid, the rookie for the Buffalo Bills. A lot of y'all drafted him and probably dropped him, and now you're like, oh snap, I want him back. Yeah, let me get him back. 8 catches for 75 yards in week 7, 16 fantasy points, not too bad. I'm not looking into that too much just because that was his first game ever doing that. Dallas Goedert is actually looking like a part of this offense. Anytime you see those tight ends get those shorter catches and start running down the field and stuff like that, I think that shows that they're more involved in the offense. TJ Hawkinson gets a lot of those routes where they're just trying to get the tight end in space rather than running him 10 yards down the field, and I just think that shows that tight end is athletic enough to get that opportunity, and those are the tight ends to be looking for. Surprisingly, we don't even see Kyle Pitts, who's supposed to run a 4.4, doing that. Kelsey gets to do that every single game, all the time. Like I said, Hawkinson does get to do that a bit too. And, not really even anybody else now that I'm looking at the list here. Interesting. I guess, Waller, they'll get him involved as well. Let's talk losers, though. There's definitely some losers. Some guys who did not do well at all. Cole Kmet with Badge Net back there had 0 fantasy points. 0 total fantasy points for Cole Kmet. And did he even have a target? Yeah, 0 targets, 0 fantasy points, but a win. And I'm sure that's all he cares about. So not much to say about him this week. Then Zach Ertz, he was looking like someone that you could possibly start as your tight end 1. Obviously, he's been solid throughout the years, like what we see from him on a year-to-year basis. But he's on the IR now. I do expect Trey McBride from CSU. I actually played against Trey McBride in high school, not a lie. And I'm not even going to tell the story on this episode, but Trey McBride is a very good athlete, and I expect him to do big things if given the opportunity. I know firsthand for sure. So I'm picking him up this week. I'm absolutely picking up Trey McBride this week. And he got some targets. I know we're talking about losers, but let's talk Trey McBride. I went to CSU and obviously know this dude is a problem. He got 6 targets this week, which was his most so far this year. He had the last play of the game that he ran a deep post route and caught it. He has solid hands. He's fast. He's a dynamic tight end for sure. So watch him on your waiver wire for when we're talking waiver wire. In the next segment, Foster Moreau. If you saw Foster Moreau, he completely sold the bag for the New Orleans Saints. Corner of the end zone, ready to make a catch to win the game, and just dropped it. It was really bad. It hit both of his hands. Then Hunter Henry, who's actually fantasy relevant, as Foster Moreau is not very fantasy relevant unless you're in one of those 20-team leagues like we're talking about. Hunter Henry had been really fantasy relevant the first 2 weeks, 16 points, then 17 points. Since then, not over 10 points one time. Also recorded a 0-point performance in week 5. This week, 4.7 fantasy points, 2 receptions for 27 yards. And I think we're just all out. Like, sometimes we're all in, but I think now we're all out of the Patriots offense, unless it's a guy named Ramondre Stevenson. That's the only guy that you can start reasonably in fantasy football, is Ramondre Stevenson on the New England Patriots, I think. And then sometimes Kendrick Bourne, if you're really deep, like in a 20-team league, I could see reasons for why you'd want to start Kendrick Bourne. But those are my tight end winners and losers. When I come back, let's do the waiver wire so I can get you some guys that I'm liking to pick up. Okay, cool. GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. My name's Austin. I'm here with you guys, and we are going to be discussing the waiver wire, I believe. Do I have the waiver wire? I don't know if I have that. I think we're just going to leave the tight ends up here for the visuals, and that's completely okay. Just listen to the soothing sound of my voice. And we're talking the waiver wire, mostly in these 10 to 12 team leagues, but constantly if you guys want to, ask a question and tell me what you think I think about your waiver wire guy. I will give my honest opinion. I pretty much know every single person in fantasy football at this point, so absolutely can give you an educated guess on the type of guy that we're looking for. And a guy that I'm looking for is a starting running back all the time. Always looking for a starting running back, and I'm sure everybody is. We're looking at Darrell Henderson this week for the Los Angeles Rams. Apparently he had came in as this week as like the third string running back. Everybody was talking about two other guys, Zach Evans and Royce Freeman, and then Darrell Henderson ended up being the guy getting all the touches. We do remember Henderson from a couple years ago, I believe, and he was a solid running back. If I remember correctly, he put up a crazy fantasy performance one year. Talented player and someone I'm not afraid to start for sure this week if he's going to get the touches. We got Josh Downs, somehow only rostered in 36% of fantasy leagues. This guy's a hooper. This guy's very, very good at football. Coming out of North Carolina, talented wide receiver. In the slot, shifty. He's really not the fastest guy. Has good acceleration though and gets open. Definitely need to have him rostered. And unless you're in like an 8-team league, if your team is a 10-team league, you most likely need to be starting Josh Downs for sure. A lot of people are talking about Taysom Hill in some of these deeper leagues, especially with the Derek Carr situation and how he's not performing the greatest. Seems like it may be smart for them to with Taysom Hill looking as good as he already has this year, maybe get him more involved in the offense from a quarterback perspective. Also, the other game had like 8 targets and 7 catches, so he's capable as a quarterback to catch the ball, and he's very good at carrying the ball too. The play that they like running the most with Taysom Hill is the quarterback sneak, just like right up the middle. He'll catch it in shotgun. Everybody goes and blocks for him, and he just goes and finds that hole. Love Taysom Hill. He's a very dynamic player. Maybe in deeper leagues, if you're desperate at tight end, you could grab him. Also in like those 2 tight end leagues, I absolutely see merit for having Taysom Hill in there. Then I'm kind of just looking at mine personally right now, and why not Cam Akers? Why not Cam Akers to finally, appear in this offense? He's much more talented than Alexander Mattison, for sure. And he got way more carries this past week. He outcarried him, I think, had like 3 more, 10-7, something like that. And he had only gotten 9 snaps the week before. So it seems like he's actually getting introduced now. Like Cam Akers, have always liked him. He's put up decent fantasy performances in his past campaigns, and I just like him as a player. See who else. Geez, the waiver wire is bad, guys. The waiver wire is absolutely terrible, at least for me. I'm going to go into my other league. I don't know what this one is. Y'all tell me somebody that you guys like from the waiver wire. Somebody that you guys think I should pick up, because I'm not seeing it. Okay, I'm joking. Here we go. So, someone to watch out for, I guess, is Dalvin Cook in case he gets traded. He's up for trade right now on the trade block. That's really all the notes I have for him, because he hasn't done anything this year. Quentin Johnston, talented rookie, out of TCU, 6'5" wide receiver with incredible speed, and he's just not getting used that much this past week. He was supposed to have more of a role, and he only had 1 reception for 20 yards. Don't love that. Don't love that at all. Maybe we can look at some defense and special teams that are not rostered too much, at least for this week. Jaguars get to play Pittsburgh's defense. Jaguars pretty talented. Have Boyce Olukin, who has led the league in tackles the past 2 years. And Josh Allen, the defensive Josh Allen, he's a dog. I think that would be a good spot for them. Guys, there's nobody. Oh my gosh. Maybe we have to look at quarterback for somebody, I can tell you. Apparently when Daniel Jones comes back, he's the starter no matter what. No matter how good Tyrod Taylor plays, they're just going to let Daniel Jones be the quarterback for as long as he can, as long as that contract will last. And, he's a fantasy option just because of his dynamic rushing ability. But I don't like Daniel Jones as a quarterback. The only quarterbacks are Daniel Jones, Sam Howell, Baker Mayfield, Dobbs. We don't want any of those guys. Running backs in my 12-team league, I'm just going to read them off. Cam Akers is somehow here. I would recommend that somebody grabs him. Then it's Dalvin Cook, Antonio Gibson, Rashad Penny, Joshua Kelly, Amari DiMercado, which they're projecting 11 points for him this week, but he is disappointed in these past couple weeks, where he was supposed to be the rushing leader for the Cardinals. And I guess in this past week 7, he did get 13 carries for 58 yards. Actually, 17 total touches. That is impressive. Rookie out of TCU, I believe. And maybe he could be a guy that you could pick up. Honestly, like if he's going to get 17 touches, you just go ahead and swoop him. That makes a lot of sense. We saw Julio Jones come back, and I think he at least caught 1 ball. Yeah, 1 catch for 3 yards. Not great. Wouldn't be telling you to pick him up. Mecole Hardman, I think, actually could have some fantasy merit, as he already knows his offense. He knows reads. He knows audibles most likely, and he's very, very fast. Nobody has stepped up until this last week. I think Mecole Hardman coming back kind of like lit a fire under everybody. That's why Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Rashee Rice decided to have a good day over there. And then Rashid Shaheed. I know my guy was just talking about Rashid Shaheed. He's solid. Big playability. Very, very elusive and fast. It looks like he's like gliding out there on the field. He looks like Frozone. I like him, but he just doesn't get volume. Michael Gallup is on the waiver wire for me here. He's not bad. Another CSU alum. He got 10 targets this last week. Always a great sign when volume is involved. They just had their bye, so maybe put in a request for Michael Gallup. Other than that, maybe let's finally just look at tight ends. I don't think we looked at any relevant tight ends because this is probably the spot that needs to be talked about. I would initially be talking about Trey McBride. Looks like, nobody has him. Dynamic tight end, very, very fast, very, very strong. Won the John Mackey Award in college, playing at CSU. Yeah, dog for sure. And with an increased role. Dalton Kincaid, if he can find a way to do anything, maybe him. Don't love it. I guess my favorite guy here is Michael Mayer, another rookie tight end. These rookie tight ends, honestly, are just like showing good stuff. As far as Sam Laporta, Michael Mayer has been solid these past couple weeks. Dalton Kincaid obviously just had a good game. I like it. Michael Mayer just had a really bad game this week, though, honestly. 2 receptions for 13 yards, but he showed the promise against Bill Belichick and the boys with 5 receptions for 75 yards. So I think his stock is still up if he's not playing up against top-tier linebacking core. I think he's going to have a good day. He's big, strong, and fast in a different way than a guy like Trey McBride, but still solid. Guys, I think we're going to wrap up here. If there is no more questions or comments, I appreciate you guys being here. GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. I will see you tomorrow. Peace.